Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with introducing myself. My name is Sarah Al-Muhsin, and I am a member of KSA chapter as a Director of Training and Development, and I also work with Microsoft. We have a very exceptional leader today, and PMI KSA chapter is really pleased and honored to have him with us today. We have Ron Lehman. He is the owner and the founder of Highway of Change, and he is the founder of the Institute of Change and Transformation in Asia, ICTPA. So Ron have been in the business of change and transformation for over 4 decades. And he have also worked across length and breadth in the UK, across many European countries, and internationally in excess of 20 industry sectors. And he have also change managed over 25 different technology solutions. He's a consultant, trainer, blogger, speaker, author, coach, and mentor, and trusted advisor in all matters related to change and transformation. In June 2012, he was presented with a Change Leader of Tomorrow Award of the World HRD Congress in recognition of his contribution and progress in initiating change enough for others in the same industry to follow his example. So welcome, Ron. We are so pleased. PMI KSA chapter is pleased to have you with us tonight. And we are so excited to hear from you, especially Saudi Arabia is going toward change for 2030, and we would like to be ahead of 2030. So the floor is yours, Ron.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. I did have a slide introducing myself, but I've cut that one out now, so that's no problem. I'd like to say thank you.
Yourself again, no problem. Maybe you will mention things that I did not mention.
Yeah,
so the floor is yours.
Okay. So I'd just like to say thank you for letting me talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is change management and project management. Some people have questioned the title of my presentation with a versus because it seems more like a battle. The title is really to be a little bit provocative, that's all. So don't read too much into the title. The presentation is going to take about 45-50 minutes or so, and we'll have time at the end for some questions. But if you can think of any questions while I'm talking, put them in the chat function and I'll go through those at the end. So without further ado, I will share my screen and start the presentation going. Okay, just bear with me. Okay, so there we have it, project management versus change management. It's not a battle, honestly, it's not a fight, absolutely not. And I'll kind of explain what I mean during the presentation. So first of all, I was going to do an introduction, but Sarah did the introduction for me, so I'm not going to bother with that. But what I will do is actually just go through and give you workshop content in the first instance. So first of all, I'm going to give you some context around what I'm going to be speaking about, just so you know. I'm then going to talk about what is the difference between project and change. Then I will talk briefly about the different roles and responsibilities of a project manager and a change manager and how they differ. I'll then go on and give you some examples of my own personal roles and responsibilities that I've had when I've worked in collaboration with a project manager on a project, just to give you an idea again of the difference. I'm going to talk about how we might be able to integrate the two disciplines. What's the best way to actually get them working together, because they need to work together to ensure project success. And talking about project success, I'm going to give you one single slide at the end that kind of demonstrates the difference between project failure and project success without change management and with change management. So that's the content of today. So are you all ready? I hope so. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and I'll just take a quick drink. Right, let's go. I'm going to give you some context now, first of all, okay? So from what perspective am I coming from and what am I going to talk about? I'm coming from the perspective of a change manager. I am a change manager. Having said that, I used to be a project manager many years ago, and I'm still a member of the Association, a fellow. But I sort of changed what I do. So I'm now a fully fledged change manager and have been for a long time. So that's the perspective I'm coming from. Change management and project management has been an ongoing debate for many, many years. I can't remember how long, but I first wrote about project management versus change management on LinkedIn in August 2014. Years ago. Okay, so it's been going on that long, and there's been a lot of debate since then on LinkedIn. So that article actually received around 17,000 views. It also had about over 200 reactions, and it also had 63 comments. It's still there if you want to look at it. Just look on my profile, look on the articles. The article's still there, and I still stand by what I said in that article. And it's kind of why I'm doing this presentation now to various PMI chapters across the globe. And one other thing that I need to just make very, very clear is there's always a lot of confusion when someone says, I am a change manager. People say, well, I don't understand. What does that mean? Okay. There is a change manager, a project change, which is involved in project change. So kind of managing change requests and ITIL in a process where project changes are identified, documented, analyzed and decided and either approved or rejected. Okay. Then there is change management of the organizational type. So managing the people side of change, which is a structured approach to transitioning individuals, teams, and organizations from a current state to a future state. And that is what I'm going to be talking about today. Not the first one, the second one with a red dotted line. When I first started doing these presentations, I looked over the PMI website and I tried to find reference points for organizational change management. And the only thing I could find was a practice guide, Managing Change in Organizations, dated 2013. In that, it says, organizational change projects are the fourth most common type of project undertaken. Only 20% of organizations adopt a formal organizational change management practice. This was 7 years ago, okay? So those four, it says one of the fourth most common, I would imagine it's probably now the most common. Studies show that organizations achieve higher success rates by using standardized portfolio program of project management techniques in concert with rigorous change management approaches. So even the PMI, okay, in 2013, have referenced organizational change management approaches. So my opening gambit is, regardless of type of projects, all projects involve some kind of change. So they're all change projects and they all involve people, okay? Okay, so that's the context. Now what I'd like to do basically is just go into what the difference is between the two. So, unfortunately, and I'm being a bit provocative now, project management and change management is sometimes not aligned. Let me explain. Traditionally, projects are run by project managers using a structured project management approach. But there is a fundamental difference between change management and project management. Project management is all about installation. It focuses on a plan built around events and timelines with the aim of getting from a current state here, no installation, to a future state here, installation. The word there I will highlight is installation, okay? Change management is about adoption. It focuses on the people aspects of the change with the aim of getting a critical mass of people to be committed to the change involved, to learn new behaviours and to sustain them willingly. Bear that in mind. Let me give you an example of the different approaches taken by a project manager and a change manager. Okay, let me give you the example of a go live. Okay, you have pre-go live and you have post-go live. So pre-go live, the project manager works to outcomes of time, cost, and quality. Okay, I'm sure you agree with that. Change manager, if there's a change manager involved in the initiative, works on things like communication, business readiness, training, etc., etc. However, post-go live, the change manager gets involved in adoption, usage, benefits realization, and a whole host of other things. So I do change management training, and I've trained quite a few project managers, and in every case, they've said to me that once they have delivered a project to time, cost, and quality, by the delivery date, that's them finished with the project and they want to move on to another project. Whereas change managers, yes, they work a lot in collaboration with the project manager pre-go live, but they have a whole raft of work to do post-go live, making sure people use and adopt whatever's been delivered, okay? Making sure that the benefits are realized in line with a business case. So that's kind of a very simple display of what the different outcomes are for a project manager and a change manager. The Project Management Institute say a project manager is accountable for the success or failure of a project. Fine, I agree with that. They are responsible for planning, executing and closing of the project. Further, the project manager is also responsible for managing teams, ensuring progress and motivating project team members. They're responsible for ensuring that the project goals are in alignment with what their key stakeholders think they're going to get. ProSci are probably, if you haven't heard of ProSci, they're probably the largest change management training organization in the world. They train hundreds in their agile methodology. They describe a change manager. They say the change manager will play a key role in ensuring projects, change initiatives, remember what I said earlier, meet objectives on time and on budget. That's the same as a project manager, okay? But they also have to try and increase employee adoption and usage, which, remember I said in that other one, pre-go live, post-go live, that happens after the project is finished. They'll focus on the people side of change, including changes to business processes, systems and technology, etc., job roles, organization structures, and a whole heap of other things. So whilst both the project manager and change manager are trying to deliver, they have slightly different different roles and responsibilities, and I'll go into a bit more detail about that a bit later. I recently read, excuse me a moment. I recently read a 2019 blog by a Suzanne Madston, who is a project leadership coach. So she trains project leaders. And that blog was called, "What are the 3 biggest mistakes that project managers make?" Interesting. I thought I'll read this. Mistake number 1, project managers manage tasks and events at the expense of leading people. Wow, that's a pretty damning statement. The most common mistake project managers make is that they are more concerned with tasks and events than with people and the human impact of change. Often, however, unknowingly, okay? Many project managers have a rational, logical, and analytical way of She further goes on to say, project managers are good at analysing facts, calculating duration, coordinating activities, and making rational decisions. Then she goes on to say they're task focused. I've got to deliver this by then. And they see their primary role as delivering what the customer has asked for within the agreed parameters. Here's that phrase again, that time, cost, and quality. Third thing she says is they are less concerned with why their customer needs the product and in which ways it affects their business. Finally, their strength is in executing and following someone else's vision and specification rather than helping to define it. So again, a few damning statements there about project management, but that's coming from a project leadership coach. So, all right. So what is the difference? I'll start with a very, very simple view of the difference. Project managers make the change. Change managers help people adopt the change. Nice and simple. Think about it. Let me go into a little bit more detail. Okay. PM and the CM. PM's priorities are technical, whereas the CM's priorities are the people. PM manages things like scope, time, quality, budget, which I've mentioned before. The CM manages adoption, which I've mentioned before, manages resistance. They manage the culture of an organization. They manage engagement and a whole heap of other things. Their outcomes, PM, solution delivery. They want to get it in and installed, as I mentioned before, whereas the CM outcome is they want people to adopt and use whatever the solution is that has been delivered. Okay, so that's a little bit more detail. Well, let's drill down to even more detail now. Number one, change management is only an idea, unlike project management, which is the development of an idea. Two, project management has a timeline, while change management does not. It's a bit of an iffy statement, to be honest, because some aspects of change management does have a timeline, because you can include a lot of change management activities into a project management plan. So that's not a completely true statement, but a lot of the stuff that change managers do doesn't have a timeline, like managing resistance, managing culture, etc. How do you put a timeline on that? Number three, change management needs many ideas to make just the one vision, while project management just needs one vision. They know what they're doing, they know where they're going, they know what they have to deliver. And number four, change management is about structuring the vision, putting all the bits and pieces together, while project management is about creating the milestones to get there. And finally, project management already has a defined goal, delivery, installation, timeline, etc. While change management can be adjusted at any second. There's many a project I've been previously involved in where, as a change manager, you tend to get asked to do a lot of different things that you originally weren't supposed to do. So it always seems to fall on the change manager to do all these other things that a project manager can't fit into their current the current amount of work that they're doing. So it can be adjusted at any second, and change is kind of messy when you're dealing with people, because you're dealing with individuals. So, you know, people can change their minds. They 1 minute they can be one thing, next minute they can be another thing. So, you know, you have to, as a change manager, you have to adjust your style and the way you engage with people and so forth every day practically. All right, let me give you some perspectives now. Sorry, but I've got a very dry mouth, so give you some perspectives from a project manager's point of view and from a change management. Project manager will see the organization as a structured hierarchy. He sits on top, she sits, they sit below them, and so on. Whereas a change manager sees the organization as a loosely connected group of people without structure, because they don't really deal with structure apart from the project manager is expert at dealing with plans, resources, data. The change manager is an expert at dealing with people and the way they behave and the way their mindsets work. The project manager performs at their best faced with certainty and predictability, whereas a change manager performs at their best with ambiguity and unpredictability. Dealing with people, people can be very unpredictable. The project manager takes their perspective from outside of the business looking in, whereas a change manager takes their perspective from inside of the business. Project manager concentrates on a time horizon, and I'm going to say it again, I mentioned this earlier, up to go live. In my experience, as I said, I've trained a lot of project managers in change management techniques, and they've always said, when I finish the project, that's it. Whereas a change manager works on a time horizon of well beyond go live. Business benefits, as an example, can take maybe years to come through. So, it may be that the change manager needs to stay on that project whilst the business benefits are being delivered. And when I say years, I'm probably exaggerating a bit, probably months. Project managers are rewarded for, is that phrase again, time, cost and quality, whereas a change manager are rewarded for business readiness, that is making sure the business are ready for go live, and user adoption, that's after the project's gone live, and how many people. Project manager deals with facts and figures mainly. Change manager deals with people's perceptions, people's emotions, the way they feel about things. A project manager deliverables are primarily very, very tangible. They know what they've got to deliver in the timelines, dates, etc. Whereas a change manager, deliverables are primarily intangible, although there are some tangible things that they can deliver and they can become part of the management plan, such as communication, such as business readiness monitoring, and so forth. You can actually put them as part of the project plan and deliver. Project manager takes an approach which tries to drive a straight line from A to B, whereas a change manager kind of navigates the path of least resistance. Yeah, resistance is a big deal, but obviously the project manager is looking for that path. Project manager primarily needs to be very structured in what they do, whereas a change manager needs total flexibility, as I kind of intimated earlier on, continually asked to do different things. When I've been on projects, I've been asked to do loads of different things that really weren't part of my remit when I started, but you do it. So those are some different perspectives from the perspective of a project manager and a change manager. Okay, let's talk about roles and responsibilities. Again, I intimated earlier on about roles and responsibilities. These are at a high level, and I've kind of split these into what I call hard, which are project management roles and responsibilities, and soft, which are change management responsibilities. You might disagree with some of them, but hey. So a project manager is about defining project scope, managing resources, scheduling work tasks, managing issues and risks, and they're responsible for cutover. And whereas change management is about project communications, stakeholder management, business readiness, training management, and usage and adoption, which I mentioned before. Let's go into a little bit more detail about roles and responsibilities, because one of the problems is that leaders often undervalue the distinct roles of these two management. PM, project management, is a business decision enabler, while change management is a people behavior enabler. They have job roles and responsibilities that require. Start with change management. Okay. So they work on things like change, sustainability, and integration. They work on communication progress and impact. They manage people side risk. They focus on people side strategies. They follow loosely, if you can, a change management life cycle, whatever that might be. And they manage and they motivate people. On the other side, the project manager, okay, the skills that they have are things like driving solution delivery. They focus on time, cost, quality, and scope. I keep on mentioning that, don't I? They manage the technical risks of the project as well. They manage the project from start to end. And they follow the project management life cycle. And finally, they deliver the project solution. So the job roles and responsibilities do kind of require different skill sets, although there's probably some things that overlap with each other. Okay, so that's in general, very generic roles and responsibilities. Let me give you a personal example, some personal examples of some of the roles and responsibilities I've had when I've worked in collaboration with a project. So first one, I was the IT change and communications manager for a big head office move for in Singapore. They moved from 5 floors of a building in central Singapore to a purpose-built building on the outskirts of the city centre. My job, as written down, was develop and deliver all IT-related communications and change for their HQ relocation in Singapore. Fine. Okay, great. Okay. My responsibilities, the high level, developing the change strategy, learning planning and delivery. What did we have to teach people? Training, etc. Communications planning and delivery. What do we communicate? How are we going to communicate it to you? How often are we going to communicate? Engaging with all the stakeholders. Change impact analysis. What's the impact of this project going to be on people? The project manager who I was working alongside with, okay, his responsibilities were managing the project plan, to which I input certain aspects of what I did, project and milestone reporting to the steering board, infrastructure planning and implementation, because the new building was a new build, right? Any risks and issues, budget management, and technical change management, the one I mentioned. That was one example. Another example, I was a business change manager for an SAP implementation, again in Singapore. It's for Manitowoc, who build high-rise cranes for building skyscrapers. I managed all of the communications, training, and business readiness activities, and it was an across Asia implementation too. It was in Singapore, Korea, Australia. So, what did I do? Again, business readiness monitoring, training development, user acceptance test management. That was a new one. I'd never done that before. But again, what I said earlier, I said change managers normally get asked to do additional things. The program manager said, have you got a bit of spare capacity? Can you manage user acceptance testing? I said, okay, I've never done it, but I'll do it, which was great. It was a new, I then basically found a new skill. Then there was process and organizational design, all the change in processes and the way the organization was structured, and stakeholder management. What did the project manager do? They managed the plan, managed the project team, they did gap fit analysis, they managed data and cutover, they did training planning, whereas I did trainer development, and they did cut over and go live planning. So again, some slightly similar roles, but quite different. And the third one, example I'll give you, is I work for Orange mobile operator in the UK, who are now, and they wanted to develop a new target operating model for their SAS business analytics technical infrastructure. So my role, change management responsibilities, organization realignment, business process capture, stakeholder engagement, education and training, and business readiness monitoring. Project managers' responsibilities, again, project management, managing the project plan, project governance and reporting, infrastructure and environment planning, risk and issue management, business requirements, and code management. Oh, so I've kind of given you an idea of the different responsibilities that project managers and change managers have. And what I'd like to do now is just give you an example of the way myself as a change manager actually likes to work, okay? And I call it being the conduit between the project and the business. So you've got the change manager, okay? On the left-hand side, you have the project team. On the other side, you have all the impacted stakeholders, okay? So what my role, the way I prefer to work when I've been doing a project is I prefer to sit between the project and the impacted stakeholder, be the conduit for any communications, etc., between the two bodies of people. What I've found in the past is that if the project team or the project manager has a direct line into impacted stakeholders, project managers and project teams are probably a little bit too technical, so they don't understand a lot of the things that they're saying. Okay, so as a change manager, okay, what I would do is not necessarily translate, but change any communications into a way that the stakeholder can understand. Take out all the three-letter acronyms that are used because the stakeholders, the impacted stakeholders, won't understand them, and deal directly with the impacted stakeholders for feedback into the project. So if stakeholders have any issues they want to raise or they want to provide some information to the project team, then the change manager would handle that. So that's the way I like to work. It doesn't always work like that, but in the majority of projects I've done, that's the way I've worked. Okay, so that was roles and responsibilities. The case for integration. A lot of talk about integrating the two disciplines. And it's an interesting debate. Okay, and I actively follow debates about, people say, yes, as a project manager, I can handle change management. Both change management and project management support moving the organization from a current state, how things are done today, through a transition state to a through a transition state in the middle to a desired future state, new processes, systems, organizational structures, or job roles as defined by. So they want to do the same thing. They want to move the organization from as is to be, or current ways of working to new ways of working. But there's that messy bit in the middle between the two. So how do we integrate? Well, integration begins with role clarity. That's why I spent a little bit more of time on the roles and responsibilities. But unfortunately, there is a lack of understanding between the role of a project manager and change manager in many organizations. Besides confusion around role clarity, there's also many other barriers to project and change management integration that you should be made aware of. What are they? Okay, let me go through a few of them. Even now, and I've been doing this for 4 decades. It wasn't called change management when I first started, but what I was actually doing. But even now, so long. Yeah, even the discipline of change management still seems to be in its infancy by comparison to project management. So change management professionals are in the early phases of converting non-believers. If somebody asks you and says, what do you do? And you say, I'm a project manager. They go, I know what you mean. You do this and you do that, etc. But then if somebody asks you, what do you do? And you say, I'm a change manager. What's a change manager? I don't understand what that is. And you have to explain it to them. So very early phases of converting people that don't understand what change management is all about. And also, since the role of project manager has expanded over the years, and it's still expanding, yeah, because I've read something in the on the PMI website about including some new stuff in the PMP exam. I can't remember what they were now, but as I read something. So since the role of project manager has expanded significantly, most, I'm not saying all, most do not have the capacity or the capability to learn change management. That's what I'm trying to do with my my change management training. I'm focusing on project management, project managers, just to give them an understanding of what change management is all about. Change management, some say, is not easily measured, since the results of change management are often tangible. So the executives who control the budgets actually struggle to justify the expense and fail to get behind change management, because when they say, yeah, okay, project management, okay, 6 months project, these are the deliverables, this is the timeline, this is the project team, etc. Yeah, I can sign that off, no problem, because people understand it. Okay, change management. Oh, what's that? Oh, they deal with things like change resistance, and they look at culture, and they look at all these mindset changes and behavioral changes. How can I sign off something that is not tangible, that I can't feel? So it's a problem, yeah, for sponsors or steering groups to actually sign off having a change manager. I've been lucky in my time on the change management road that I've always found somebody that will employ me. And lastly, while project management has been ingrained deeply within the fabric of most organizations, okay, or you'll find that most organizations will have a project management capability of some sort, yeah, but not all organizations will have. That capability is often put onto the project manager, or is actually brought in. Change management is still struggling for a seat at the C-suite table, so where the big bosses are. Still struggling to have a seat there and actually tell people what change management is all about. The importance of project and change management to project success. This was a survey done a few years back now, admittedly, by a company called Beyond Strategy. It was a short survey done on LinkedIn, and it asked two very simple questions. The first question was, how important is project to change success? Okay, good question. 25% said it was critical. 68% said it was necessary. And the rest said it was nice to have. They switched the question round. And the question that they then asked was, how important is change management to project success? Guess what? 48% said it was critical. 43% said it was necessary. And the rest said nice to have. So you have almost 100% increase of the criticality. ProSci, who I mentioned earlier, as I said, the most well-known, biggest change management training company on the planet. They have regular webinars every year. One of the things they regularly do is ask people who join their webinars, how well is change management and project management integrated in your organization? Top-down access, extremely well down to extremely poorly. Bottom access, 0 to 50%. So how many said very extremely well? About 4%. How many said well? Oh, that's a bit better, about 12%. How many said acceptably? Whoa, it's gone up to about 34%. How many said poorly? Wow, 42%. How many said extremely poorly? About another 88%, sorry. So you've got about 50% of organizations who are saying that change management and project management is either poorly or extremely poorly integrated in their organization. That is a stunning figure for me. Yeah, it's a few years old now, but they continue to, every year they do their webinars, they continue to update it, but 50%. So, you would think that something would be done about it, but I haven't seen any significant change in that in recent years. Right, so what do? We're going to try and integrate. Project management and change management. What do you have to do, to try and integrate both the disciplines? There's 5 steps in all. Step 1, obviously, it starts with education, informing leaders, stakeholders, project managers, and project team members that the benefits of change management is critical, as per the slide earlier, to project management success, to project success. That's the first, education. Start telling people, start teaching them about change management, exactly what I'm trying to do. Then you need to set expectations around how change work actually gets done and acknowledge that the discipline of change management is actually based on facts and insights, and we do use data gathering tools and processes to actually inform what we do. It's not all, soft stuff. It's not all this weird stuff that goes on in the mind. Yeah, we do actually use data to actually do things with, right? Thirdly, and this is one of the things I sort of intimated when I said I like to work as the conduit between the business and the project. Use consumer-friendly and basic language when describing the change processes and work efforts, because the process for change management, if you don't do that, may be viewed as inefficient to the untrained eye. If you start using sort of 3-letter acronyms and stuff like that, people just turn themselves off. Fourth, ensure project management and change management synergy by presenting a unified front to the project leadership. Make sure that when you're dealing with the stakeholders or your project steering group or whoever, that you are presenting a unified front. I'll tell you a very quick story. A project I did here in Thailand. They asked me to present some training statistics to them, which I did, and I put a red flag on them, and they didn't like that because the project management side said that the training was adequate, and the stats I took about the training management I thought were not adequate, so I red flagged them. I was removed from the steering board for telling the truth, but hey, that's the way it goes. So you have to be careful. You have to have a united front. Okay? So partially my fault. And fifth and finally, collaborate with the project manager and key stakeholders to embed a change methodology, whichever one it might be, and subsequent change deliverables within a master project plan and status report. I have, in every instance I've worked with a project manager, I've always added activities, milestones, etc., dates for delivery and so forth into a master project plan where it has been possible to do so. Okay? So, as I mentioned before, things like business readiness measurement, things like communication activity, things like training activity, you can put timelines on that easily. But the one thing you can't put timelines on is managing resistance, understanding company culture and so forth. So you don't put that in a project plan. But yes, you can put change management activities into a project management plan. And that shows you are working together. Now, those are the 5 steps that I consider we need to go through to ensure some kind of integration. But there's a conundrum about the PM and CM integration. Okay, can just one individual be both a project manager and a change manager, or should they be 2 different individuals? I have a favorite phrase that I use all the time: horses for courses. In some instances, you can have a project manager doing change management. In other instances, you can have a project manager plus a change manager. Depends on a budget for a change manager and so forth. For me, in my experience, I believe that a CM and PM model of working in partnership is the way forward. A PM with a responsibility for change management, or conversely, a CM with a responsibility for project management, I think just puts too much pressure on one individual, and they may not necessarily have the right experience and skill set to manage both elements. That's my view, okay? But CIO magazine agree with me. They, I can't remember how old this is, about 12 months ago. They had an article, How Project Managers and Change Managers Work Together. And they said, when projects are initiated, they create a significant amount of undue stress on stakeholders and employees in general. While project managers maintain complete focus on overall project objectives with the goal of ensuring stakeholder value, change management professionals should not only attend project meetings, but also be an integral part of the project team. Kind of maybe disagree with that, having said I like to act as the conduit between the business, but hey, this is what CIO magazine has said. Collaborating provides a holistic approach to strategy and ensures the impact to people can be sufficiently addressed to reduce things like unnecessary stress and anxiety, and also hopefully to create a smooth transition in terms of processes during and long after the project is complete. Finally, overall, CIO, not me, CIO, say organizations should encourage change management professionals and project management to work together, closely together, to ensure project efforts and the resulting change are sufficiently addressed to reduce the impact on its people and the level of product and service delivery. So yeah, kind of, they agree with me. I'm glad. How do you select whether you use a project manager for both project management and change management, or you use separate people? I picked this up from if it actually was a PMI chapter. I think it was PMI chapter in Carolina so at the bottom axis, they have a degree of behavioral change required of the project, and they have a low and high. On the left-hand side, it says whether it has a supportive culture or supportive leadership, whether that's strong or weak. So, as an example, if you have a low degree of behavioral change required and you have a strong supportive culture, you probably can do it with a PM and they can have some change management skills, no problem, because the degree of behavioral change is low. Where the degree of behavioral change is high, and the supportive culture and lead from leadership is strong, now you can have a PM plus strong CM skills, or a PM plus a CM. And at the top, on the weak side and the low side, a PM plus strong CM skills, or PM plus CM, and on the high side and the weak side, a CM. And it's just something that they prepared to give a sort of snapshot of how you can choose whether you use a project manager for change management or a project manager and a change manager. I have a suggested partnership model. I have a way in which I think change managers and project managers can work together. And it looks like this. You have a top, you have the steering board or the program board, whatever it's called. You have the project manager that sits under there. You have the change manager that also sits under there, and they work in collaboration with each other. Right? Obviously, the project manager has a project team, and if you're very lucky and the sponsor has signed off a good budget, you'll have a change management team. Okay, very rare I've had a big change management team in previous projects, to be honest. So then you have the business, which we're all trying to deliver to, which we're all trying to help. So the change team, as I said before, act as the conduit between the project and the business. The sponsor also has some responsibilities to the business, yeah, for communication, and where you possibly can, if you don't have a very big change management team, what you have is change agents. So you actually establish a network of change agents from the business, yeah, that are actually from the operational side of the business to help you, the change manager and the change team, with what you're trying to do. This is the way I've worked in about 6 or 7 different projects, and it's worked very well. Maybe some flexing here and there, but it has worked very well. So again, though, it is really dependent on the type of project and whether the sponsor signs off the budget and various other factors. Right, so we're coming to the end, and it's taken just about 50 minutes, okay? I've got one slide more on project success and failure. And this is from ProSci, from their webinars. So without change management, they say employees feel surprised and overwhelmed by the change. So that kind of results in things like failed project results, extended project schedules, additional project costs, and low adoption and usage once the projects have been delivered. However, with change management, employees feel prepared and supported for the change. And the kind of stuff that happens is projects are, this is from their webinars, this is what organizations have told them, 6 times more likely to achieve their objectives. Number 2, they're 5 times more likely to stay on schedule. Number 3, they're 2 times more likely to stay on budget. Finally, number 4, there's a very big increase on the people dependent ROI. That, oh, just one more thing. I've got a survey that I'd like you to complete. So if you've got your device in front of you, I'll just leave this QR code up for a few seconds. If you just let me know how you think I did with this presentation. I will send out a link and this QR code along with the slides to Sarah once we've finished. So that is the end. And are there any questions? I do note that in chat there's 17. So I'll just open that up and let me just go through it. Okay. Voice is interrupted. Oh, I apologize for that. Don't understand why that is. So, okay, audio and go. Okay. So obviously something wrong with my audio. All right.
Yeah.
Are all these questions on audio? So do you all have a question you would like to ask speaker? Okay. Please. Okay. Right. There's nothing there. Just complaints about the audio. I do apologize. I didn't realize there was a problem with the audio. I'll have to get that checked out.
I think your material was covering whatever you're saying.
All right.
It was going back and forth, so that's okay. Technical issue.
All right. So there's a couple of
adapt to change as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of Q&As. What's the difference between change and transformation? Good question. Change is more like a specific project to change something within an organization. Transformation is more on the lines of a bigger piece of work to transform the total organization. So change management is normally project based, whereas transformation is completely organizational based. Most of the times clients do not agree on changes. And what will you recommend? Oh, there we go. What will you recommend to deal with such clients on contract clauses? That's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure what you mean by do not agree on changes. If you're talking about agreeing on process change or organizational structure change or technology change, that would be something that the project manager, the program manager, and probably the steering board would have to deal with, I would imagine. The change manager would not normally get involved with contractual issues with clients.
Okay, so what is an advice that you can give for people who resist change?
Sorry, say again, Sarah. Hello? You've frozen. Hello? Oh, you froze, Sarah, you froze there for a while.
Yes, you too.
Yeah, sorry, the connectivity.
So what is an advice that you give for the... Yes, I think there is a technical...
You're breaking up. Sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah, so I'll repeat my question again. What is an advice that you can give for those people who resist change in the organization?
Change resistance is, is an interesting one. The way I would handle change resistance is when you do your initial stakeholder engagement survey. So who are your stakeholders that you're dealing with? Okay. Who are your impacted stakeholders? Try and interview as many of those stakeholders as possible. Yeah. And the way you interview them and the types of questions you ask, you will get an idea of whether they're likely to be resistant or not resistant. Okay. If they are resistant, it is better advisable to try and involve people in the project as much as possible. Involvement, engagement, communication, they're all activities that need to be done, because at the end of the day, people don't resist change, they resist being changed. Yeah. And it's all about ensuring that they understand what the change is all about. They get made aware of why the change is there. What are we doing? Why are we changing? We've got a financial problem. Sorry?
It's fear of change sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's it. But you deal with it head on. You engage with them. Yeah? You involve them in the project, and you continually communicate. So, people can't say, I didn't know about that. I didn't understand that. Well, actually, part of the communication and part of the fact that we've involved you, I've always tried to involve people in the work I do. So if there are any people in the business that, look like they are interested, I involve them. I said, come and join me for a couple of hours and see what I do. Yeah, and work through the kind of things that I have to do. So they become more aware of what change is and how change impacts people. And once they become aware of that, they're more likely to become non-resistant. But there will always be the die-hard resistors, yeah, that will not want to change regardless.
Yeah.
You can't do much about them, unfortunately.
Because as you may aware that Saudi Arabia is going toward change, and the change will only happen when the young and the old leaders comes together and accept the change and work toward a common goal. So I think this is a very interesting subject that you talked about today. And I wish to have in the future how to adapt with change. how to the organization can train the people to adapt with those changes.
It's an interesting one because I mean I mentioned during the presentation the fact that a lot of organisations still don't recognise change management as a discipline, so they're very reluctant to spend money on change management. I think in my change management training, I've got a statistic from Gartner that said organisations spend about 5% of their budget, their transformation change budget, on change management, and Gartner say they should be spending at least 15%. Yeah,
I agree.
and that's it's still a big problem today. It's still a problem trying to convince project sponsors, steering groups, and program boards that they need to invest in change management. But I think we've seen during this pandemic the fact that change management has kind of come into its own, yeah, because you know all the things that have happened, and it's kind of proved in one way that you can force change on people. You're like, you know, sorry, from tomorrow you're working from home. Yeah, there's no argument.
Whoever is not committed with the change, unfortunately, they will be behind. You know, we are living in a world that is full of technology, and technology is evolving every day. And whoever is not adapting with these changes, unfortunately, they will be behind. So it's a personal choice.
And what it kind of it kind of proves is that people can change. So if they're forced into it, it's not a good way to actually apply change management to actually force people into something. But if it's a crisis situation, it's one of the things that happens. But what you're getting now is the fallout of that. So what's now going to happen after we get this pandemic under control? What needs to happen in organizations? And that is where change management will come into its own, because people will be fearful of going back into their workspace. Yeah, people will worry about, you know, working together with colleagues again. Yeah, and this is where change management comes into its own, because it's all about, you know, trying to get people to understand and change their mindsets and behaviors. Frozen again. So connectivity is not very good today. You froze a couple of times again.
Yeah. So
anything else?
We would like to. I think
I'm just looking through to see if there was anything else.
Okay.
In the thing. Hello, everybody. Sorry about trying to.
I have this question here. What if executives who sponsor a project resist to executives who own a change process?
Yeah, I've got it here. What if executives who sponsor a project resist to executives who own a change project? How far such a conflict could be arbitrated? Oh, yeah, okay. If executives, if you're a sponsor, you're not really in a position to resist. If you're made a sponsor of a project, you're not really in a position to resist. You have to be very careful when you're choosing your sponsors, because sponsors, it's been shown that sponsors, having a good sponsor is the number one thing that makes a project a success. So they have to get the owners of the change process on board. That's part of a sponsor's objectives, is to actually engage with them, okay, and again break down that level of resistance, create awareness. The resistance always comes from the fact that people haven't been given enough information, okay, they don't know enough about what's happening, so they automatically resist. So if you can educate them about the project, provide that, repeating myself admittedly, but provide that awareness, provide that additional engagement and involve them in what you're doing, it will change the way they think. Yeah. there are times when we talk about here, how far can such a conflict be arbitrated? There are times when at some stage the program board will come down and say, this is the way it's going to be. But, that's the same with anything really. If the people who are in the position of sort of, trying to negotiate what they're negotiating become so intransigent that there's no way they would agree, somebody has to be the arbitrator and say, this is what's going to happen. And that will normally be whoever the senior responsible owner is of the project. I'm just looking, anything else?
Excellent.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? The CM will be aware clearly about scope of work, almost same as PM. Yeah, there's another one there. Yes, change management is fully aware and clear about the scope of work. And they should be, because the change manager will work very closely with the project manager. CM will secure ahead of all required training and other parties related to team skills upgrade. Secure ahead. The CM, sometimes the CM has a responsibility for securing people onto training. I've had responsibility for creating training plans, etc. And I've been responsible for getting people onto those training sessions. So yes, CM will do that. And from your experience, which is the most important levels in the organization for success of the change? The most important one is the sponsor. The sponsor is the person that will make or break a change initiative. If they do what they're supposed to do, they've got to walk the talk, not just talk the talk. They've got to do certain things, like they have to engage with employees. Yeah, they have to celebrate success and a whole host of other things. So the sponsor, yeah, is the most important level in a project. It can, they're the top person basically. What is the right start to learn more about the profession in change management? Please talk about it. That's a good question. Do my course. I have a 2-day online training course all about change management. If you go to the, oh dear, what's it called? The survey I've got. There's a question in there that says, would you like to know more about my training course? So if you are interested, answer that yes, and I'll send you more information. What schools or institutes that you recommend to look at, such as PMI or ProSci? If you're interested in change management, it's ProSci. There's the APMG. There's 2 professional bodies there's one in Australia called the Change Management Institute, and there's one in the US called the Association of Change Management Professionals. You mentioned the fact that I'm the founder of the Institute of Change and Transformation Professionals Asia. We are in the process of setting up a specific professional body for change and transformation practitioners here in Asia. And I've already had, one of the difficulties is people are saying, well, what does Asia mean? And I'm saying, okay, because we've already had inquiries about whether places like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and people can fall into the greater Asia thing. And we're kind of concentrating on 14 core Asian countries at the moment, but once we're incorporated, I think we might start to look wider. I've even had inquiries from Africa as well. So ProSci, APMG, Change Management Institute, and the Association of Change Management Professionals.
Okay, so I think we hit the time limit.
As the process changed rapidly, our strategy of executing the project changed as well. Now, how do I convince our management that changing the strategy is a must? That's not part of a change manager's job. That's you as the project manager should be able to do that. That's your responsibility, I'm afraid. You know, the change manager deals with the people, not necessarily the strategy of the project. They will fall in line with the strategy of the project, but the main answer is the people.
Hey, Ron, I think we had reached the limit of the time of the webinar for the day. On behalf of PMI-KSA chapter, I would like to thank you for this amazing and rich information about change management, which I think you are hitting this subject just in the right time. And we wish to have you talking about adaptation, change adaptation for organization in the upcoming webinars and this year, because we did not get enough from change management. It's very important. The world is changing, so do we. On behalf of PMI-KSA chapter and on behalf of the Badr Burshaid, we would like to thank you for participating with us, for giving us this time to enrich the knowledge of KSA.
Sorry, you'll be broken up again. Connectivity hasn't been very good, has it? Hello, Sarah. You've
Okay, so I wish that you heard my
you're back. You're back again. You froze for about a minute. Sorry.
All right. So on behalf of PMI-KSA chapter, we would like to thank you for all the efforts for enrichment, the knowledge of PMI-KSA chapter members, and we wish to have more webinars with you talking about change and adaptation. Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate it.
I'll send you the slides and the links to the survey after the session. Okay.
So this webinar will be recorded and it will be published in PMI-KSA chapter YouTube channel. You can refer into it anytime. And thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you.
It's late here now. It's gone 11 o'clock.
Thank you for joining us, even though we have this time zone difference. We really, really appreciate it. And that's the biggest reason that you are adapting with the change. So thank you.
What, to the time zone? Yeah, because I can normally go to bed early. Okay, Sarah and everybody else, thank you very much and have a good evening.
Has been our pleasure. Thank you.